Okay, gents, let's now switch gears and focus on the FA Cup semi-final. There's two of them. Obviously, let's preview them. Man City against Liverpool. Again, these two giants meet. And Chelsea against Crystal Palace. So two very different semi-finals. Obviously, City against Liverpool. They're going after every trophy going this season. And then for Crystal Palace, I mean, Chelsea is kind of a luxury for them as well as City and Liverpool. I feel like the FA Cup is like, oh, it'd be great if we can win it, but maybe no big deal if we don't win it this season. But for Palace, it's, a route to Europe, a first trophy. Patrick Vieira, how huge that would be for him and his young squad. So some great storylines swirling ahead of these two games at Wembley. Andy Edwards, let's start with the big one, City-Liverpool. After that epic clash at the Etihad, we see a very similar game. Do you expect it to be a little bit different? Because there's some injury issues. Pep Guardiola said that Kyle Walker, Kevin De Bruyne might not be fit for that. And then Liverpool coming into this game fairly rested. They rested 7 starters essentially against Benfica in midweek. So you'd have to say maybe Liverpool are the slight favourites heading into this game. But I'm really intrigued to see the lineups, right? That will tell us a lot about how important these two teams are taking this semi-final.
Yeah, I think when you take all those factors in, maybe a slight edge to Liverpool for that right there. But I'm looking for a letdown from one of these teams at some point because they've been on such an incredible high for a couple months now. Both of them just matching each other, result for result. They play each other, they draw, they go to Europe, they both keep advancing, and on and on. They just seem to keep looking at each other and say, okay, you've done that. I'll do this now. And they just seem to find a way. And at some point, the fixtures, the head-to-head matchups against one another in such a short time, somebody is going to have a letdown. And so I think probably factoring in a little bit of the lineup and injury stuff that you mentioned there, Joe, it might actually be Manchester City in this game. I think if they're going to look at the 3 trophies that are on offer to them for this season, they're probably going to put the FA Cup third. I think that would be a very fair and easy statement that no Manchester City fan would argue against. And so if they have to prioritize at all, and I'm not saying to throw the FA Cup semifinal, but if they have to prioritize anything and say, well, if we have to rest somebody to get them back for the league coming up next weekend, we'll do it this week. We will do it this weekend in the FA Cup semifinal, even though it's against Liverpool, because it doesn't affect the Champions League. It doesn't affect the Premier League. It can only help us in those. And so it'll be interesting to see what Pep does, because we had such an interesting game over the weekend tactically where Manchester City almost played a little bit like Liverpool in that game. It was a little bit more counterattack. It was a little bit more direct. And Jurgen Klopp, by the way, was very quick to point that out after the game. Hey, Pep Guardiola, Mr. Tiki-Taka, Mr. Possession, playing a little long ball. He got his jokes in and everything. And so it was fascinating from a tactical matchup, whatever the lineups are going to be. I think there will be a couple changes probably for City going into this game. And then I think it's going to be, okay, what's that tactical change going to be, that's necessitated by the personnel being changed. And so it's going to be an incredible kind of chess match, I think, much more so than what we saw last weekend, where it was kind of a track meet. Let's just go and put all the quality on display, impress everyone, give everybody what they're looking for. And then this weekend, I feel like it's going to be, all right, let's not lose this one. Let's find a way to extend this as long as we can.
Yeah, it's a great point, because with this, maybe they're even expecting to play each other in the Champions League final. Maybe they're just keeping a few cards and tricks close to their chest and up their sleeve to say, okay, first game, City again went more direct. Liverpool were a bit caught out by that. Second game, maybe Pep will try something different. Maybe Klopp will try something different and sit back a bit deeper. And then all building up to.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, I know. It's just weird. It's almost like they morphed into each other now. They've played each other so much and respect each other so much. But I mean, you brought up a great point there, Andy, in terms of Man City, the treble. They could win the treble. And for Liverpool, the quadruple was still on. They've won the League Cup. They win this. They're in the FA Cup final and the favourites. I think whoever wins this semi-final will be the favourites to win the FA Cup this season. And then, obviously, it could come down to the two of them to win the Champions League. So, Nick, how much of an edge will that add to the game? The fact that, it's very rarely done, isn't it? I mean, we talk about the great Sir Alex Ferguson signed under Manchester United, the 1999-2000 season when they won the treble. City have won the domestic treble. But I think for either Liverpool or City to match or surpass what Manchester United did, that is a huge bonus and a huge carrot dangling for them to say, we can finally shut Man United fans up after 22 plus years of talking about the treble. Do you think that is a factor, or the managers are kind of just taking game by game right now and not looking too far ahead?
Well, they'll tell you that, so let's get that out of the way. They'll tell you that. They'll tell you that in their sleep. You kind of poke them, and they go, "One game at a time. The next one is the only one that matters." Like that's how we get to.
Yeah.
But I honestly think that in this situation, that it's going to add to it. And this is I think I've been thinking Liverpool's going to win this game for since the final whistle, because we knew what happened in the first leg of their Champions League match, and maybe they're just a little bit more fit there. I had been kind of hoping we would see like Pep Guardiola surprises by going in a 4-5-1 with a dedicated center forward. And Liverpool responds with Trent Alexander-Arnold playing the Pirlo role. Like both these guys who have kind of tried to say that I wouldn't want better there do that. But what I think is eventually going to hamper these teams and probably hamper Liverpool just a little bit more, guys. Tell me if I'm wrong, please. I would love to you just tell me and give me that confidence that I'm wrong. What is going to be the issue is that Man City plays nobody for about a month. And I know that it's not like they beat Liverpool and they have a 4-point edge. That 2 points, that 1 point, the 2 points separating them is dicey. But Man City, it's nobody else until Real Madrid in the Champions League. Liverpool, it's right after this, Manchester United and a Merseyside derby where they could potentially relegate a rival. I mean, I just think if anybody's going to overlook it, somehow it might be Liverpool. But at the same time, aren't both these teams used to finding an impossible level of consistency and intensity?
Well, that's the difference this season, right? They really don't have any injury issues for the most part. I mean, we're saying Walker and KDB might be out. They might have slight knocks, but again, you probably expect them to rotate. And even though they are class players and De Bruyne is, the key man for Man City in many regards, they can still find a way of playing extremely well without some of their key players. And they proved that throughout the season. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the tactical battle, who's playing. And again, it's almost like the second, and we're all almost expecting them to be in the Champions League final as well. So it's a second of a 3-game series. And now I think it's going to get really, really serious. Andy, you want to jump in?
Yeah, let me throw you a question, Joe. Let's say one of these teams goes on and wins the treble. And obviously everything can't be exactly the same as to when United did it, because it was league, it was FA Cup, it was Champions League. And so either it'll be a quadruple for Liverpool to include the FA Cup, or it'll be a treble without the FA Cup. Or I guess it would be the exact same treble for Manchester City. What am I talking about? How much more impressive doing that in 2022, given the quality that is on display, how much more is known about everybody, the tactical preparation, the analytics, and the video and data use and everything now, where it's so much more difficult to win a trophy in 2022 than maybe it was back then, when it was kind of who's got the most talented players that are going to show up on the day, when Manchester United did it, obviously 22 years ago now.
I think that if obviously if Liverpool won the quadruple, then they'd be the best team in the history of English soccer. Obviously, just goes for saying that in terms of the trophies they won in the season. I think it's difficult with Manchester City because everyone will, and the same with Liverpool as well, with the resources, to say, oh yeah, well, it's easy. You guys got the best squad. You can afford it. I think the difference now is that there's 5 or 6 teams, right, who are of a similar level, can pay similar wages to players for the most part, transfer fees. I think when Man United did it, not to take anything away from them whatsoever, but it was them and Arsenal for that period of 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And it was just back and forth, winning trophies. Now there's more competition from so many different teams, even teams mid-table in the Premier League. We've seen upsets happening. And I think that makes, I would argue that if either City or Liverpool win the treble, then that would be a better achievement than when Manchester United did it. And I think over the years, maybe nostalgia and the fact that it hasn't happened since has made that team even greater. And it was a great team. The internationals, Beckham, Giggs, Scholes, Neville, Roy Keane, Japstam. Obviously, so many great players in that team. And I haven't even mentioned half of them. But this would be a next level. I think you're right there to say in this day and age, in the modern game, I'd never thought I'd actually see this happen and one team dominate. So yeah, that is for me a really intriguing part of this, because in isolation, probably like you said, the FA Cup is way down the priority list for both of these teams. But when you add in, okay, we can win a treble, or in Liverpool's case, a quadruple, that is just so much extra motivation for me.
Yeah, you said you never thought you'd see it in your lifetime. We have 2 teams trying to do it at the same time.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.